you said, quote, "My biggest regret from my time in the CIA was not stopping 9/11." Can you give us insight in regard to what you and the intelligence services as a whole knew beforehand, and if you think there were clear signs that were missed that could have prevented 9/11?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think we all feel that way. I think every single person at CIA on 9/11 feels that way. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone that didn't. But I have come to see now, right, now that there's like distance between it, that it really isn't entirely. I look at the warnings that we had. If you look at the presidential daily brief, I don't know if you've seen that, the very last one that was kind of made public before September 11th, all it said, all we had was that they might hijack some airplanes. What are we supposed to do with that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I also don't think the American people would have like tolerated shutting down all the airports.
No.
Right. That's like super nebulous. And
Right.
so, yes, we had those. And I will say all of the camps evacuated. The camps that we were looking at, they evacuated. Well, it's real easy to play Monday morning quarterback and be like, oh, yeah, they evacuated to like, because they knew we'd bomb the shit out of them afterwards.
Yeah.
But
These Al-Qaeda camps that.
Yeah, but we didn't know what that meant.
Right. And you can't just bomb a camp.
You just report on it.
Yeah.
But like that's all you can do. And
Right.
so when you look at the threats and I look back at like what was missed, no one picked up the phone and said, this is what we're going to do on September 11th.
Right.
Now, what I will say is that the FBI and CIA are definitely responsible for really poor communication between the two, because what had happened is one of the individuals was on a terrorist watch list and the CIA didn't tell the FBI. And then the FBI, they did tell the people at headquarters. Those people then didn't go and tell the FBI. And so, yes.
What do you mean one of the individuals who hijacked the plane? Mm-hmm. And you mean like they had intel on this individual? They knew they were here, and they didn't tell other agencies? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So there's been a bunch of documentaries done about that. And so I think because what had happened is the hijackers had come from Germany and then they had come from Indonesia, and then they had multiple entry visas into the US. They were not here illegally. But one of them was on a watch list and did pop up. And so theoretically, dude shouldn't have been allowed in to the US, right? If you're on a watch list. But the problem is he was on the CIA, on the watch list, I think because of the CIA. I've got to remember that correctly. And at that time, we had 2 FBI agents detailed to us. But the FBI didn't have clearance as a whole. They did, but the FBI agents did not, like, to stop it. And the problem is CIA is not sitting there at the airport to deny the person entry. So if, at the time we had no Homeland Security, but if FBI doesn't know, if Customs doesn't know, well, then he's here, right? So that was part of a huge problem, which has since been fixed, which is good.
I was listening to, I don't know your feelings on Snowden. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. And he, from one of the things that he said is very similar to what you said, which is that there was a lot of knowledge in each individual agencies, but the agencies were lacking communication. That appears to be like what generally people within these agencies understand is like, there may have been enough knowledge to stop it, but the agencies weren't communicating together. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there may have been piece by piece by piece. All I can talk about is obviously what we had at CIA. I don't know what the NSA had. They weren't sharing everything with us.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's a problem. But Snowden is my favorite person to troll on X.
Oh, really?
Yes. I rarely troll people, but I
Why?
Definitely, because I have such disdain for him.
Really?
Yes.
Can you? I would love to hear why.
I'm so sorry. So one thing I will say about myself is I'm fiercely loyal.
Yeah.
And so the issue is I wrote my book, right? I sent it to CIA. It took 8 iterations to get it to even look the way it does now.
Yeah.
Because I fiercely believe in protecting my former colleagues who still may work there. I don't want them to be killed. I don't want anything to happen to them. I don't want to reveal secrets that are then going to cost taxpayers money to redevelop. Right. And so I'm just very loyal. And so I have zero tolerance for anyone. I feel the same way. There's another CIA officer who did go to jail for leaking things. Anyone that leaks anything, whether you think you are some savior by doing it or not, like, you don't have that ability. And that, in my opinion, is unacceptable because people will die. as a
That
result
makes
of that.
sense.
And because of some of the things that he leaked, we then have to go and rebuild them. Right. So now you have a gap in collection intelligence. So if there's something that happens here, because we were rebuilding the satellites that you told the world about, you are a murderer. And like, that's how I feel about him. So I know a lot of people think that he was like a hero and did the right thing. In my opinion, I think you are somewhat of a coward actually in doing it that way and then running away, basically, which is what he did.
Right,
He
correct.
didn't even like face
The consequences
the
of it.
consequences.
Yeah.
I
I'm
sound like a jerk. I'm
no,
sorry.
I'm glad that you're just honest about it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I think people appreciate the honesty. To be like, I do not claim to be an expert in this at all. Do you? Obviously, you don't like that he leaked it at all. In regard to the program that he leaked, do you agree with what was being done, or do you think that like what was being done was inappropriate and shouldn't have been happening at that level?
So I think that's part of the problem, is that he leaked these documents and gave absolutely no, like, he literally gave them to news agencies and was like, you do what you want with them, right?
Yeah.
He did not really go into any detail about what they were and what they were doing. And so then that leaves that all up to the imagination of individuals who don't have backgrounds in any of
Yep.
this. Now, I understand that there are significant problems with trust within our government. Heck, I even have problems sometimes. And I
Yeah.
like worked there. So I acknowledge that. I absolutely respect that. And I can see where people are coming from. But it made it seem like we're literally listening to the conversations of everyone.
That's what it seemed like.
I don't have time for that. I don't know how many employees people think the government has.
Right.
But like, if I wanted, there was one time in my entire time at CIA that I needed to collect on an American citizen. And I can't go into too much detail, but I would say that 100% of the American population would have been like, you should have been collecting on him 10 years ago because of what he was doing was
Right.
so bad and so deadly. And so one time, and I had to go to 6 different court hearings to obtain a warrant to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So this was very much like a guarded process
Right,
that was,
right.
in all honesty, a giant pain in my ass.
Right.
Most of us were like, oh, thank God it's not an American number. Like, because I don't think people realize, like, we don't want to have to deal with all of that
Right.
because it's annoying. It's 3 hours out of my day now that I have to go downtown, go to a hearing, and I know we need to do that legally to protect American citizens.
Right. But it's obnoxious still.
But I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think there is a misconception about that.
Yeah.
And yes, I do think sweeping up everyone's data, if you don't explain it like in context, is really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And you are asking the American people to say, oh, trust us, we've got it. Right? When like there are definitely some trust issues there.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
so I actually completely get where people are coming from. And I absolutely respect that because I do think collecting sweeping amounts of data like that is probably not the best way to go about things.
Correct.
But in terms of phone calls and things of that nature, I mean, it was definitely a heavily regulated process.
Yes. No, I mean, that provides me a lot with a lot of context I didn't have before. So I
Yeah, of
appreciate that.
course.
Thank you. As someone who works in the CIA, how do you respond to 9/11 conspiracy theorists?
So I am a pretty nice person. And on social media, I too try to be kind. Sometimes I'm firm, but like I try to be kind. I can't deal with 9/11 conspiracy theory. Am I being too blunt?
No,
Jordan?
please
I'm
be
so
more blunt.
sorry.
I love it.
I just find it so disrespectful
Yeah, agreed.
to the people who perished. So disrespectful. And some of them, are about the government doing it or different religions doing it or different, like, what are we doing? Like that.
Yeah.
And especially when I literally sat there.
Right.
I didn't even know the first plane had hit. So clearly this is not some government conspiracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I get, oh, well, you weren't at the upper echelons of government. To be completely honest with you, no, I wasn't. But I was literally on the tip of the spear
Right.
fighting the war on terrorism. So like, trust me, I definitely would have known.
Right.
Now, do I have issues with like the Iraq war and some other things? I think we're a little manufactured, 100%. And I'll acknowledge that. But I get very irritated with 9/11 conspiracy theorists only because I feel awful for
Yeah.
the victims.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's it reminds me now of a lot of the conspiracy theorists around October 7th.
Yes.
It's very similar stuff.
I don't understand it. I don't get it, especially when you are. And I understand, again, I actually understand why people are skeptical of the government. I really do. As someone who worked there, I actually get it.
Yeah.
But like, we need to be skeptical, of like the right things. And this is just not a hill that people need to be dying on.
Yeah.